crafty friends, it's Sharon Luska here from My Crafty Greetings, and we are doing another Team Tiny Hop with Joy Claire Designs, and I'm doing the Holly Jolly Santa digital set, and we were set up by Martha from Joy Claire Designs. Thank you so much for our digis, and Leanne McKinney for organizing this fun, awesome hop for us. And speaking of fun, I've got us some fun fur for this card, and we're doing a Santa was eaten by the polar bear. Just kidding, he's snuggling underneath a polar bear blankie the polar bear made. Hey, speaking of kind acts, here's something. Kathy Aranzana's almost at 1,000 subscribers. As soon as you're done at this video, if you could pop over and make sure you subscribe to her, she'd make it to 1,000. That's a really big deal, and you'd totally be my hero. Okay, so I flipped over the fun fur, and I'm just going to draw on a little pencil line here, and I'm guesstimating myself out about 1/4 inch here. I just want to make sure it's dark enough for me to follow, and then I'm going to get some really pointy scissors here, ones that I can just slide in between the fibers of the fur, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm not going to cut over top of everything. I'm just going to kind of stick those needle noses right up through the fur and keep them as close to the layer of fabric as I possibly can. And then once I've got it cut, that's what's going to leave all your fur in place. I'm just going to pull off all the extra little bits here so that they don't get stuck all over my station and in all the rest of my work. So one of the things that I wanted to do was make sure that this got stuck down really good. And using some multi-matte medium, well, as soon as I get it unclugged here. So, oh yeah, and that's Tombow Mono Multi. And just use one of those little teeny tiny paper clipper things. They work perfect to fit in that little hole. So I'm going to set that aside to dry, and I need to cut myself a frame because we're going to make a furry shaker card. Is there such a thing? I guess there is now. So this is why this tool is a must-have in the craft room. You can actually use it to cut the center out of paper. Using the little pointer and matching it up to the lines on the ruler grid really help a lot when you're cutting out a nice frame. Since this card is 5x8, I need a good stiff acetate, and I used the GBC impact covers just from the office supply store. Well, this isn't from the office supply store. I snuck it out of my husband's office. But anyways, I put on some glue with the ATG on my frame, and I don't know if anybody else has had this problem, but this particular Scotch ATG is giving me such a hassle. You'll have to leave it below in the comments and let me know if you're experiencing the same thing. Once I get that stuck down, on top of the paper portion of the frame, I'm adding red line tape. At least I'm trying to add red line tape. Call me fuddle fingers. I'm going to put on a couple layers of foam tape that luckily is slightly less than 1/4 inch wide. I cut it just a tiny bit longer than I need to, bend it back and squish it into place. It makes a nice tight seal. Now my fun fur is dry, and I'm going to stick that on the red line tape. Now before we get too far, I want to introduce my guest artist who's doing my coloring for me. She's been creating since she could hold a paintbrush. She's an absolutely fantastic gal. This is Brianna Yonkis. And she has decided that she would take care of all of my coloring today to give my hands a break.
I like coloring, Mom. Can't wait to Santa get here. It's gonna be excited. It's gonna be a lot of adventure for us.
Santa makes me excited too, Brianna. You did an awesome job coloring this for me. This fantastic Santa image, I can understand why she was so excited. I'm going to give it a quick fussy cut and make sure Santa's toy bag's cut out as well. I'm going to also make a quick, not very well blended background, but you'll see why it doesn't matter in the end. Now I'm just going to remind you, Team Tiny, we run by a hashtag hop, so you want to click that hashtag in my title to make sure that you find all the other creators. If you can go along and share a little bit of love with everybody, give them a thumbs up, a nice comment, and if you haven't subscribed to them already, it sure would be great if you would, because we are really doing everything we can to grow our little tiny channels here. Now I'm certain that I have just as much ink on my fingers as I do on the paper, and I'm going to flick some water on my paper and give it a little bit of water distress look. I'm dabbing that up with an old rag, and I've mixed up some gesso and water, and I'm gonna liberally flick on a whole bunch of little white spots. And then using a little pointed pokey tool, I'm turning some of those little white spots into stars. I also got out my shimmer pen. That's a Spectrum Noir one, and I've got lots of shimmer here. And I'm going to be getting some ATG, lots of ATG on this bag so that it sticks over top of all the shenanigans I've got in the background. And I'm pushing this beautifully colored image down and just test fitting my frame. And I'm going to flip that over and put it together from the back. That way I can make sure that everything's going to line up. I've got all of my little protective, what do you call those things? Strips. I've got all my little protective strips off here, except for the top one, and I just bent that back a little bit so that I have a capability of getting my gems and glittery bits in here. So I had the brilliant idea that using these little acrylic diamonds from the dollar store, I think you can get them at craft stores too. I thought that putting those in and then putting in these little shimmer discs or mylar discs, whatever they are, that would keep this stuff from sticking to the acetate. And here's my big mistake. I added this stuff in from the shaker and it started sticking everywhere. And that was not the point of this shaker card. I wanted to be able to see that beautifully colored image that Brianna had done. And yeah, I don't know about this shaker stuff. I did use some of my powder, my anti-static powder. That didn't seem to work, but if anybody's got any tips on what might work better, besides maybe trying to spray some static guard in there, I don't know. So I've cut out the little leaves here from some of the coloring that Brianna did for me, and I'm sticking that on, and I've also gone over that with some gold and added a couple of gems, and I'm not entirely sold on this green sentiment. So when you look at the pictures, you'll actually see that I have pictures with both the white sentiment and the green sentiment, and I'm going to send them both along to Nina so that she can choose which one she'd like to use. Or maybe Brianna should choose the one that she wants. She is our little artist after all. And I'm kind of hoping that she gives this card to her Nonna and Nono. They're Italian. Anyways, Nona's a friend of mine too. So this is the card. Thank you so much for joining me. And don't forget to support the little artists in your life, because hey, that's how we grow up to be big artists, ones that possibly have a channel on YouTube. Thanks so much for joining me, and if you haven't already subscribed, I sure would love it if you would. Here's a couple more videos you may want to watch. And hey, what's a pirate's favorite letter? You'd think it'd be R, but it's actually the C. Bye!